and I am excited to be here to present to you our experience in starting a recreational esports program in partnership with the City of Maricopa. To be clear, they started the program and we helped them out with training and equipment, but basically we came alongside as a partner to their vision of creating a cohesive and comprehensive esports program for their citizens. So let's take a look at what we're going to cover today. I expect this presentation will last somewhere about 45 to 50 minutes. So we're going to talk about why develop a recreational esports league. And we're going to show some videos that Matt and I recorded a year ago. And then I'm going to provide some updated information about what's transpired in that period of time. And those videos will include the recreational league, why video games are important, how video games or how these types of programs can help kids develop social skills, and why do kids watch video games? Finally, we're going to talk a little bit about Maricopa's vision, and then some information to help you compare esports versus traditional sports, and finally, what we've learned at Bravus over the last year of working alongside amazing community-focused esport programs of the path they took to start and launch their programs. And we've added some special notes to address virtual and online programming because, let's be honest, there's been a lot of change in the last 12 months. So without further ado, let's dig in and let's meet Matt, and we're going to go back in time and discuss at the very beginning when Maricopa was starting the program what they were thinking.
I'm Matthew Ryder, City of Maricopa Programming and Marketing Coordinator, and I'm here with Scott Novus.
I'm the founder of Game Truck. So I created the video game birthday party concept, the trailer that pulls up in front of your house, full of video games and kids pile inside. And I created that concept out of the idea that kids playing the best games together with your best friends was a great experience. And that idea led to a new idea, which really came up in the last year, was to found Bravus. So Bravus is our youth esports business. Mm-hmm. So we've really started working on creating what we call sort of a little league of esports. It's focused on kids, bringing them together to learn how to compete in a healthy way. Really, one of the things that we wanted to teach kids was it wasn't so much about winning as it was about having a healthy mindset to learn how to compete and deal with failure. Where do kids get an opportunity to do that? It's not safe to fail in school.
That's true.
Right? So sports is one of the great places that you learn how to cope with challenge and difficulty and overcome, and it really is like a little melting pot experiment of how you can learn to be your best self if you get a healthy mindset while you're doing it. So Matt and I sat down and recorded that presentation, and going through the process, what we learned, looking back now a year later, was that not only kids, but adults wanted to play. So one of the things you're going to notice throughout this whole presentation is this emphasis on kids and kids programming. But one of the things we've seen is adults, especially young adults, are just as interested in video gaming, perhaps more interested in video gaming. And if you're going to run a program that's going to charge fees, it turns out adults are happy to pay for their own participation. So it's one of the things that you don't want to overlook. And there's another thing that is really interesting about this program is the desire of the players to hang out with the people they compete with. They actually do want to meet the people they're competing with. One of the biggest challenges with online-only play is, that we'll go into that a little bit more, is that you rarely get that chance to actually meet and hang out with and do other things with the people that you're playing video games with online. And that's one of the things we see over and over again, is like having a solid in-person program carries many ancillary benefits that the players really value. So, but why video games? Why are video games important? Well, let's see the answer to that. Video games are some of the most advanced technology human beings have ever created that stimulate your brain the way your brain likes to learn. So that is really heady stuff to play with. So we're always on the cutting edge. We're always pushing the envelope. And one other thing Video games are storytelling in the second person. I'm designing an experience for you. I want you to have a great experience. So in that sense, they're very selfless because I'm trying to design something that someone else is going to engage with and have an incredible experience with. So those are all the elements that drew me into video games. So esports represents video games brought to that level of competition where it's really people competing with people. And I think that's where people get confused. They think of, oh, it's like I'm playing by myself. No, you're not. You're competing with other people on a fixed rule set that allows for creativity and challenge and innovation. And those things are more felt than seen. So, one of the things that we've seen in 2020 is, yeah, video games are important, but they're important for a different reason. Not just because of the experience that individual players having. One of the biggest reasons that video games are important in a municipal program is inclusion. They level the playing field. You can get such a staggeringly diverse group of people playing together. Almost no other sport or other activity seems to be able to draw together men and women competing with each other, boys and girls competing with each other, all kinds of backgrounds, especially for some of the underserved communities that we very often see. Children in wheelchairs, people that have their adaptive controllers are available. The technology levels the playing field, allowing a very wide group of people to connect and play and share their experience. And that's something that we were just looking at the technology and the basic experience was like, wow, this is great. But who it can include, who it can support, that is super important. And we didn't want to lose sight of that this year. So, how can video games help kids develop social skills? Let's take a look. Our sense of happiness, to a certain degree, we outsource to the people around us. We need feedback from the people around us to know if we're happy. And one of the reasons that purely online in general has a negativity is that there's this weird inversion that happens. I don't know if I'm happy. If I make you miserable, then by definition, I must be happy. So you get these strange flame wars that escalate out of control.
Mixed emotions, right.
But if we're present together physically, so let's say we're in the truck and we're listening to some music and there's a song I like, without you saying a word, I will be able to tell whether you like that music. Now, if you don't like the music, I will self-protect. The negative energy goes to ground. It never escalates.
Okay.
It's just like, I'll just protect myself a little more. But if I see that you like it, I like it more, you validated me, then you notice that I like the music more, it validates you, and the positive energy multiplies. So we actually bring the kids together physically, and I've heard this for years. People are like, boy, that crushed playing online.
Yeah.
That was so much better than being online, because we are meant to be together. And what we're seeing today in kids is what I call synthetic autism. They spend so much time in front of screens.
Social skills, yeah.
They're blowing
social
by.
skills degrade.
Right,
Yeah.
social skill development,
Yeah.
which is a huge issue.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be that way. Their parents don't want to be that way. But we bring them back together. It doesn't take that long. We're wired to do this. If you get kids in the right environment where they're playing together face to face, they'll bring it back in just a few sessions. And they will rapidly, what is amazing, if we give them the opportunity, they will teach each other and learn from each other and grow together.
Good.
That's what we're missing online, is that nonverbal teaching that you get from your peers that share your interests. So that's why it's so important to bring the kids together. So in 2020, getting together is hard. I think we all know there's a lot of advantages to in-person, face-to-face competition and hanging out together. But how do you do this online? So one of the things we're going to talk about, and I'll go a little bit more in depth with this, is if you're going to have an online community, you need live moderators. This is not an option. When you're setting up, whether it's tournaments, a lot of people like to start with tournaments, but if you end up creating your own Discord server, if you have your own online community, you're going to need to moderate it. And you're going to need to set up rules and procedures for handling behaviors. It just becomes a little more challenging. But in our experience, what we have found is when there's real human beings paying attention to what people do, those behaviors, people tend to behave. Now, it's not to say we don't ban people, but that's our last resort, right? We are trying to keep people moving forward in a positive direction. But what you really don't want to do is leave unmoderated conversations open. You're just asking for trouble. So, and then having no conversation, we believe, is the worst of all, because you're leaving people isolated. So when we can't get together, there's a variety of tools, whether it's Zoom, Discord, Twitch is its own animal, but there's a space you're going to want to create online for people to connect with their friends and meet up and join. You're going to need it to be able to operate your events. You're going to need live operators, live moderators to be able to make that work. So one of the things I had talked about is esports versus traditional sports versus work. One of the things, and you're going to hear about this later, but I'll give you the statistic. In 2013, by 15 years old, you had 45% of kids fell out of team sports. 7 years later, no, it was 2016. Sorry, 3 years later, that number accelerated to 70% of 13-year-olds fall out of team sports. In 2020, 70% of 11-year-olds. At younger ages, more kids are falling out of traditional sports. 70% of high school kids watch or compete in competitive video games. What's going on? Sports is probably one of the greatest things we've ever created to help prepare us for our future. It's a simulation of the tension that, as Madden said, will teach someone to be their best when their best is most needed. But how does traditional sports compare to our work economy? How does it look like someone's economic future? So that's what this table does. And this is what's happening, why so many kids are gravitating to esports. Do men and women work on the same team and compete with each other? In traditional sports, no. They're segregated at a young age. I'm sorry, a couple female collegiate field goal kickers is not enough. Esports, the world champion of Hearthstone is a woman. There is no separate division by gender in esports. At work, men and women work together. They sure do. They do at my company. I hope they do where you work. Now, do they compete directly? Even if they do work together? Traditional sports, generally no. There's a very, very, very few exceptions. In esports, absolutely. Same thing at work. There are female-owned businesses, there are female-led organizations that compete with other organizations. The workforce is not split by gender. It's not supposed to be. There's laws against that. Now, let's talk about technology. Generally in sports, technology is considered cheating. It's supposed to be your own physical ability. Within esports, it's all based on technology. I use technology every day. I'm using technology to give you this information. That's what we do at work. Now, this is a really interesting one. How does everyone contribute? How is everyone included? Well, traditional sports generally needs a bench. There's a group of people that are sitting around, fully qualified, completely trained, ready to go, waiting for the opportunity. That doesn't exist in esports. Everybody on the team contributes. And it's the same thing we see at work. Everybody at my company, I'm sure you have the same. Everybody in your organization is expected to contribute and given the opportunity to do so. That's important. I think the other thing that is kind of hidden in there that we see with sports all the time, somebody made a joke about it to me recently, is, oh, you injured yourself. That's what sports is all about. I'm like, man, that's not what sports is about. But there's this message of disposable people. It's one of the reasons we need a bench. People are going to get hurt. And then they're not going to be able to participate and play. It's expected. Esports, yes, there's no doubt there's injuries, but that's not the ideal of it. There's a tremendous movement right now to improve and increase health for esport athletes, both mental and physical. And at work, when we have dangerous work, we try to put robots on that stuff. We don't want people. In fact, it's a big deal if somebody gets injured on the job in any kind of work environment. That's what OSHA's for, is to make sure people don't get hurt on the job. So when we look at it, we want to see an environment that looks more like what our work environment is. And finally, here's the thing that you see over and over again is this physical evaluation. Think of the combines. Think of the assessments that people get constantly in sports. Do they look the part? Do they fill the uniform? All of these sort of observable behaviors. And sometimes they're very subjective. Esports, it doesn't matter what you look like. It matters what you can do, how well you can play the game. In our work environment, it's illegal to evaluate somebody on their visual appearance. We shouldn't be doing that. So esports looks way more like a child's economic future than traditional sports does. And it managed correctly, it has the opportunity to prepare for the future. Now, there's one big gap that's not on this chart. It's really important, and I hope it's one of the reasons you're here. If we look at mentorship, people we respect that have experience that are trying to develop us to our potential, sports wins hands down. Adults have almost completely abandoned kids when it comes to video games. We won't even try. Half the time, they're like, oh, I can't do that. We act as if it's this weird taboo thing we can't be involved in. And we've left the kids on their own. In no other domain do we do that with children. We don't do it in education. We don't do it in driving. We don't even do it with fishing. But we'll do it with video games. We act like there's nothing we could do there. And that is a huge opportunity for us to bring mentorship, leadership, and reassert our mantle as someone that can help care about a child's development as a whole person and the development of their potential. It's a new way of looking at it. And that is something we absolutely can learn and bring across from sports. And that's one of our goals. And that's one of the areas where we strongly aligned with Maricopa. So, as we said, one of our goals is that we want to create an environment that will help someone be their best when their best is most needed. And, why are people dropping out of sports? Here's the graph that I talked about. 2013, at 15 years old, 45% of kids fell out of sports. A few years later, it dropped to a younger age, 13 years old, and now 70% of kids are falling out of team sports. And by this year, it had dropped again another 2 years, and 70% of kids are falling out. The reality is kids don't have that much access to sports. Our biggest conferences have not added a team in 50 years. ASU, Arizona State University, was the largest campus in the country in 1984 with 22,000 students. Today, 20,000 students is considered a small campus. ASU has 100,000 students, one baseball team, one basketball team, one football team. The SEC, no new teams. The Big Ten, no new teams. In the last 50 years, we've doubled our population and tripled the number of kids going to school. And it goes all the way through high schools. We have high schools now with 2,500, 3,000, 4,000, 6,000 students. One team. How much access do kids really have to participate and play? And even if we don't cut, I'm aware of programs on the East Coast now where there are no-cut soccer. Who's really playing? There's only 5 kids on the field, 30 on the sideline. This is not just a human behavior, not just a primate behavior, it's a mammalian behavior. Animals won't play games they can't win. A guy named Jaak Panksepp found out that if 2 rats wrestle and play together and one is 10% bigger and it always wins, the younger rat, the smaller rat, will stop playing. We need to have the opportunity to win. We need to have a sense of fairness. And that is what we're really craving, is the level playing field. This is one of the reasons you're seeing so many kids drawn to video games. Video games are engineered to deliver a level playing field. So let's dig in a little bit and talk about how you would start a program and how that would work. What we have found is there's 7 considerations you want to take a look at. So consideration number 1, it starts with people. It starts with you, it starts with the people in your department, and it starts with the people you're going to attract to an esports program. Then we're going to talk about your purpose. You want to be really clear about what it is you're trying to achieve. We're going to talk about place, platform, procedures, practice, and last of all, play. So let's talk about the people. One of the things that you don't have to know all this, you don't even have to be in games. What you need to know is what your strengths are. Maybe you are one of those lucky people that's really into video games. Awesome. But eventually you're going to want to draw somebody who's into your program, whether it's a high school student that you can hire part-time as a coach, or somebody else in your department that's willing to transfer and help you or work with you. But one of the most important things as a leader of a group is know how things are done in your organization. How do you get space? How are purchase orders put together? How is programming launched? How do you market? Like everything about managing programming is the most important part. You're going to be able to find people that care about video games. They're not hiding. They're waiting for somebody to ask them to participate. That partnership between sort of if it's a school, you think of the faculty advisor and the student leadership. If it's a community, it's very often a recreation coordinator partnered with a student club leader that can be that first coach that can help get a program off the ground. But you're going to want to find that core group of people that are passionate and care about getting your program going. What you're then going to want to do is sit down together and get your vision for your purpose. I can tell you right now that the huge divide in esports is between competition and community. Competition programs at the collegiate level look like Division I sports programs. They're small. They have dozens of students. 50 is a big program. Versus community programs, the largest community program in the country that I'm aware of is run by DePaul University. They have 1,800 students involved in their program. So who you're trying to serve and who's going to be involved, this is a foundational decision. And here's the funny part. Community programs can be as competitive or more competitive than competitive focused programs. But it's one of these slippery slopes. Our advocate is always community, recreation, maximize inclusion. So that's our recommendation, but it's something that you're going to want to come together because you will find some people will come on with a competitive mindset will be frustrated by community. And you want to make sure that everybody in your group, your core leadership team, is aligned with your purpose and what you're trying to achieve. Now, one of the things we often talk about is place. Where are you going to house this? And traditionally, that's a physical setup, a venue, an arena is the word that we often use. I'll tell you the truth. The most successful arenas aren't big stadium things. They're typically converted offices. Call centers are perfect to do this, but you're taking an office space that has plenty of power and wiring for computers and converting it over a space for people to play video games. And I'll talk about one other special consideration you'd look at. But what you want, you don't have to have a permanent facility. It can even be a flex space where you're doing a mobile arena. You're bringing equipment in on a regular basis and setting it up so people can compete and play and run your programs. Virtually every rec center, we have a lot of experience with this in my business of rolling in, setting up an arena in an hour, hosting a massive event, breaking it down and leaving. So you have more flexibility than you know. What's important is that people know where to show up to find you. And this is true online. You're going to want to think about where you're going to consistently appear so people know how to find you, whether that's your social media, whether that is you're going to set up a Discord server for your community, whether that is you have a special Zoom call with invitations where people can register so they can log in. You want people to be able to find you. And you want the people to be able to evangelize and tell their friends, here's how you show up, here's how you register, here's how you check in, here's where you can be. That being easy to find is super important to a successful program. So here's some examples. Maricopa took 2 central offices, knocked down a wall between them, and created a great arena that has 12 gaming PCs. There's a little map here in the middle of the screen that had 6 desks that have 2 computers each on them. They added a handful of consoles, and it nearly identically matches the square footage footprint of DePaul's Esports. That's the program I was telling you about that has 1,800 students engaged and involved. And you can see where the consoles are along the side wall. DePaul put their computers down the middle. What's really interesting is that little room with sort of the brown couches to the side. Both of these spaces have a social area next to them. There's a waiting room, if you will. Think of it as the Hogwarts effect from Harry Potter. Today's kids want a common room. They want a space to hang out and chat and wait for that next round, or after they finish a round to spill over into. It's a space you can have a big tournament in. It's really important to think, aside from when they're competing, where is a space for them to socialize? That's one of the most important factors in creating a community sports programming is thinking about the social space. So where are we today? In Maricopa, Matt Ryder is upgrading all their PCs. They started out with home-built machines that were extremely cost effective and launched their program with that. A year later, they now have enough demand to be able to bring them up. They are COVID-proofing the room so they can begin launching the program this fall. And they've reached out to their charter schools and community around them to provide esports programming where people don't have the opportunity to be able to have any kind of activity whatsoever. And their goal is to continue to build momentum in their program. They had a number of successful tournaments and launched successful leagues, and they want to continue to grow that. In the last 12 months, DePaul has grown their esports program from 1,200 to 1,800. They continue to add more consoles, and they've grown their game club from 10 to 13. And Courtney James is the leader of that program, and she's an amazing resource. Somebody who speaks frequently. If you ever get the chance to see her, meet her, or hear her talk, I highly recommend it. She's a huge advocate of using video games to generate engagement because it's as simple: engage students, graduate. And that's her goal, is get kids across the finish line. And they see video games as a solution. So we've talked about people, purpose, and place. Let's talk about the platforms. This is the one thing you got to think about esports as track and field. It's not one game. It's not one event. It's not one thing. It's a collection of things. And you can go from PCs, which could be laptops or home-built machines, to a console like the Nintendo Switch, to dedicated consoles like the PlayStation and the Xbox. We are big fans of the mobility of consoles, but we know that a lot of games and a lot of core gamers want PCs. So as you dig into this, what you're going to want to do is you're setting your vision and look at what your budget's going to be, is what will it take. Another really interesting option that's really gaining some headway, I would encourage you to look into NVIDIA's cloud-based computing. They now work with Chromebooks. So you can get access to Chromebook computers that will log into cloud computers and run a wide range of competitive games very effectively. So you've never had so many cost-effective options to launch a program. And you could start a program with as few as 4 consoles, one really, but you could start with a few consoles all the way up to, and you see people are building arenas with only a dozen PCs and having very successful programs. So let's talk about procedures. This is one of those things that is super important to the competitive community, is that you're going to want to be able to publish and make transparent to anybody who participates what your ground rules are for competition and how you're going to manage it. Games like Smash Brothers can be configured a billion ways. Call of Duty turns out to have a myriad of ways that people structure and set up their competition. And so it's important when you're setting up your league. This is why it's great to recruit a coach or someone who's passionate in the community, is that you set up a committee to establish your guidelines for the games that you're going to support, how you're going to manage competition. And so you're setting everybody's expectations and then being consistent about that. I cannot tell you how important that is, because it's easy to lay your hand on a rule book for football. It's easy to lay your hand on a baseball and so on in traditional sports, basketball. Esports, it's actually a little tricky. Is very often games have community standards, and sometimes they're open. And you're going to have to sit down and go, these are the rules we're going to operate under. Especially the sports games. The sports games take people by surprise, because some players treat the sports games like FIFA or Madden like a simulation of the real sport, and other people treat them like a video game. And you can do things in the video games you can't do in real life. And the question becomes, are you, is that fair? Are you cheating or not cheating? These are things you're going to want to think about, and it's important that you get it documented and establish the right rule set for your community. Now, when we go online, this is something that's super important for you to know. So when you're talking about procedures, this is the most important procedure of 2020. The Child Online Privacy Protection Act, COPA, specifically excludes schools. Schools may dictate where kids will work online. That's why so many kids went online. Private companies and municipalities are not carved out of that legislation. So in our investigation, I am not an attorney. These are our recommendations. Number 1, involve your risk management officer at the beginning if you're going to do anything online. What the law requires is verifiable parental consent for their kid to be online. And how you're going to gather that and how that meets the needs dictated by your risk management officer, a risk management department, you're going to have to sort that out. Not all platforms support children under 13 playing online. This law affects 12 and under. So you can't just roll out a kid-focused online program without doing this homework. You could get banned. You could have your account shut down. Companies take this stuff very, very seriously. So you're going to want to put some energy into thinking through how you're going to work with children if you're going to be offering program to children under 12. And you're going to get a lot of parents approaching, and they will not appreciate the differences and the risk you're taking in providing youth programming because they just see their kids online all the time. And it's different when you're providing services. When you're the one providing, we got to think this stuff through. So here's one of the things I think is important, especially dealing with kids. But it turns out this is important to all levels of players. They want to progress. They want to achieve a level of competency they want to get to where they can, make this thing work. And so how you're going to develop a growth mindset among your players is important. So let's take a look at what they're doing in Maricopa with Nate Oliat.
How's it going, Maricopa? My name is Nathan Oliat. I'm the Community Services Director for the City of Maricopa. I'm proud to be so. I know you might say, what are you doing in recreation? What are you doing in community services? You could be a part-time model almost anywhere. But I'm here and I love it. I'm passionate about what we get to do for our city and create memories in an excellent way for our cities. Today, I'm here to talk about our esports program, and as we take the next step in the development, you may have heard about it. I hope you have. If you're on this page, you probably have. But we want to talk about our esports and how it relates to traditional team sports, especially as it relates to youth. So we are starting, you've seen probably some of our beta leagues and tournaments coming down, but we're taking that next step in our growth into a team sport, into an esport league. So where kids and youth and family and even up into adults can come and join a team where they'll stay on the same team for 6 to 8 weeks, very similarly to the way they would in a youth sports program like soccer or flag football, basketball, baseball, etc. So what we hope to accomplish by the end of this video is to show you all that if A, your child likes video games or you like video games, and B, you see the value of team sports and what it can mean to a person's development, that C, our esports leagues can bring that to your family and to your child. So one of the important things
So really what you're seeing, what Nathan's talking about is this progression piece. Is now that they've got their center up and running, now that they are, have their proof of concept, they are putting their energy into providing coaching and a structured environment for kids, which will include physical activity to keep them healthy. So the important point is, this is a spectrum. There's a continuum of programming, and all the things you're already good at in terms of providing programming, providing access, creating things that engage kids and communities will apply to esports. It's just a little different because of the technology. And the thing I encourage everyone to do is play, make it fun, be consistent, collaborate with the community, but get in there yourself and find out what it's all about. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Gaming with the right leadership can absolutely have a positive impact on kids and their future. So that's our summary. We've talked about what it takes to get started, why you would start one, the importance of video games and kids, that we have this sense of Look at your people. What's your purpose? Where are you going to host these events, and how are people going to find you? What kind of technology and platforms are you going to start with? And then publish your procedures so people know what's going to happen. Have a vision for how you're going to help people improve, not just as players, but also as human beings. And get in there and play. It's good stuff. There's an old saying. I love this Chinese proverb. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So I encourage you, start where you are with what you have. Even one console and a TV, you could begin to program. And we are here to help. So if you need any additional information, coaching, we do coaching certifications. We have a director certification. We provide consulting and help. That's what we do. We're here to help, but you can do this. You can absolutely do this. dog.
There we go. Hi, Heidi. Hi, Scott.
Hello.
There they are. Hi, Scott. Hello, Heidi.
Howdy, everybody.
So let's just go around and do quick introductions since we're all kind of new to each other. I'm Jim Burke with the City of Glendale Parks and Recreation Department. Scott?
I am Scott Novus with Bravus Esports.
I'm Karen Mendoza with Bravus Esports.
And I'm just learning how to use my mute button. I apologize. My name is Heidi Barriga. I am the Administrator of Special Events and Recreation. Nice to see you all.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us. So Kevin connected us. I guess he had some contact with you back in the early spring.
Yeah.
So it's been a little bit, and he just sent it to me and asked me to follow up. So I'm really kind of uncertain exactly who and what and how you do. So why don't you fill us in a little bit if you don't mind?
Yeah,
and then
sure.
we can ask questions and kind of see how we think it might fit in or work here.
Yeah, we're kind of coming from the same angle. As we had a conversation in, like you said, the spring, and it was centered around esports and programming. And then, we all know what happened in March.
Yeah.
And so, again, was reached out. Hey, we're looking at doing some programming. We should talk again. So, we would love to know what you're trying to achieve to see if we can help at all. So, in a nutshell, we started a couple of years ago a Bravus as a esport league for kids, and the goal was that the stats are just crazy. Was it Nathan Oliet down in Maricopa said it's by 11 years old, 70% of kids are falling out of team sports.
Yeah.
We're certainly seeing the data. We've seen it, from where we're at. Flip it around. 70% of kids in high school are watching or playing competitive video gaming. So there's this massive shift that's happening. And our thought, because the other business that we do is Game Truck. So I'm the founder of Game Truck. We've been doing that for 15 years. We've done hundreds of thousands of parties nationally. It's a national franchise. We've engaged over 10 million kids. Nintendo is one of our premier partners. So we have a lot of experience working with kids in video games. And we started looking at our coaches and kids in a different light. And we saw the profound impact an adult showing interest in kids' video games had with as little as 2 hours a year. And we thought, man, maybe we should be working with kids more than 2 hours a year. And that became the impetus behind Bravus, was to take the best of coaching and reintroduce adults into kids' lives in the area that they spend a lot of time and care about. Like, that's the huge gap, right? Is there's no other domain in a child's life that adults so completely abandon them as video games. And now you look at the stats, right? And we're even like, wow, I don't know how to play. Really? Like, we'll go play beer softball, we'll volleyball, I'll jump in, but somebody hands an adult a controller and you're afraid they're going to pee their pants. It's like, okay, well, they need us. And they were looking at a birthday party like this was a life-changing event because an adult knew what they were talking about, cared about it, and could help them. And it's like, we could do better. We should bring this back. So that was the start of Bravus. And it's evolved in an interesting way. And it right now is this huge churn that I think we're talking to a lot of cities, a lot of municipalities, and I really feel like people that have safe spaces for families and kids, really anything we can do to help you roll out programming, engage programming, create it. Because right now the parents are lagging the reality of what's happening. Is what we saw was that they were like, oh, esports is great for somebody else's kid, but not mine. We're like, yeah. So guess who really wants esports? The people that have to deal with those parents' kids. So our huge market right now is colleges. Because these kids graduate, they go to college, and they're utterly disconnected from everybody around them. And so colleges have blown up in the last year. I filmed a series of videos with Mark Ryder about esports and why it's important, what kids are doing. At that interview, there were only 60 schools that had scholarship tuition assistance. It's over 200 today, 12 months later. And it's simple. Engaged students graduate. And what they're getting is this tidal wave of kids coming in that they've left their friends, they're no longer around their family, and it's worse today with COVID because now they're at home disconnected. And if they don't engage in anything else on campus, they lose them. They'll drop out of school. But if they can get them engaged and they can get them in a program, they're 85% more likely to graduate. And 47% of those kids study STEM degrees. So there's like really powerful reasons to establish a healthy community-driven esports program. So our platform, what we do as a company is right now our bread and butter, what keeps us in business is we run tournaments for organizations that are trying to figure this out. So we run them for schools, we run them for cities. We've got a slate on deck for the military coming up because they've got a lot of isolated servicemen and families that are like their quarantine rules make ours look lax. I mean, they're not fooling around, and they're trying to find ways to get people connected because the world's changed in this fundamental way. It used to be a big event was you get as many people as possible together in the same space, and that's a great event. And now people want to meet with the people they can't see anymore. They want to hang out with the people they can't hang out with anymore. So we bring professional production and esports to private groups. Like 99% of streamers stream themselves playing a game. Only the top 1% of gamers get professional commentary and professional tournament organization. We bring that to small groups. So we have, I joke, we have the Al Michaels of video games. We have like 2 or 3 really amazing commentators that are really world class. Like they do professional tournaments. We've got a wide staff of people that, because we want to put people on air that people can relate to. And then we've got a great tournament organization staff, and we do it all virtually. So that's what we're doing right now. But we used to do everything in person. And where we engaged with Glendale was designing solutions like building off what we did with Maricopa, where they're like, that's awesome. We have to do it. You cannot run our program for us. So that opened the door for us to start designing training, services, and equipment so you could run your own program. And so our goal long-term is to get you up and running with your own programming. We will bootstrap it for you and everything in between. So our goal is eventually for you to pilot your own plane, but we can start out flying you there, put you in we'll be your co-pilot, and then you're ready for flight, take off. But our focus is on community and people and training up the staff to deliver these things. We don't sell software. We're not half the stuff out here is free, but it's tricky. It's like getting your hands on what are the competitive rules for Smash Brothers. There's a billion ways to configure that game, and there's no user manual for that. It's like you got to know people that are in the community going, these are the community standards today, and here's how we're going to manage it. And like imagine an IT department suddenly was doing sports, right? You'd be like, oh my God. That's what this is.
Okay.
So our goal is to give you what you know how to run your organization, you know how to run programs, you know how to communicate with your community, you've got all that infrastructure. It's like, how do we help you, connect the gap with video games? I hope that answered your question. I mean, I threw a lot at you in a short amount of time.
Yeah, you did. Now, you gave me some things to think about and to try to formulate some follow-up questions. But basically what we're trying to do is get back into the after-school effort after being out of it for over 10 years.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, this is a huge challenge, I think, because schools and families and communities just didn't sit around waiting for us. They went and found their other solutions, other opportunities. So our centers were run by some nonprofits, and they tried some STEAM and STEM programming, and they really didn't draw the kids in. Glendale is kind of an interesting community. It's very working class. It's kind of a bedroom community to a bigger city next door. And the kids that are college bound and academically doing well weren't looking for us. And the other families were really looking for, I think, recreational free time, safe space for their kids to be in. And when we disappeared from the scene, they found it. They either went to Boys and Girls Club or the YMCA, or the schools created their own. So we're trying to recreate that and bring them back in. We have 3 small centers here in town. Heidi, help me. I think they're about 4,000 square feet each.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not huge
Not
rooms
big.
or huge buildings, but we're staffing up right now. Heidi's just hiring a coordinator to come in and then try to figure out what this is going to be. Go talk to the schools. We still have some people in the city government who think we should be doing STEM training and after school academics. But I'm actually not one of them, because I don't think that's what these kids are looking for. I don't think, these kids, when they get done with classroom time, they want to be done. They want to do something else.
Yep.
And if they're not going to be on a sports league, like you said, and that's true, we see that also, this might be an option for us. We don't know. But what I heard from Kevin was intriguing, because it would be a different model, a different way to try to attract kids.
So
in the past.
This is what we might have something that could be in your wheelhouse, because we needed to do this for New York. So the state of New York is super interesting, right? They have $880 million for after school programming.
We're not in that league.
Right?
Yeah.
But
wow.
It's distributed by enrollment. And so if you live in the Bronx, you can walk to a Beacon Center and enroll in an exciting program. And they were bringing us in because the kids weren't showing up. The programming they were offering just wasn't interesting to them. They were like, I'd rather stay home and play a game. So we took our traditional coaching content of a league. So it'd be a weekly program. It could scale from once a week to 3 times a week. And we built out STEM training on top of it. And we called it a video game introduction to STEM careers. And what our goal was is you're going to play video games, but we're going to take some time. So you're going to play with competent gamers, and you're going to learn how to be a better gamer, and you're going to have fun. But we're also going to open, and this is the other reason how we ended up working with universities is talking to their esports programs. Like, they're recruiting. They want people. They're like, where are these kids? Like, we want to find the kids that want to be good at this. So we're trying to connect the dots. And Karen's done an amazing job of reaching out to different nonprofits. I forget a couple of the names of the organizations where, like, all this infrastructure exists for D1 sports. It's forming right now around esports. And so this is how chaotic it is. There are 50 esport conferences in college right now. 50.
Wow. Conferences.
Yeah, conferences. It's chaos. Nobody knows what they're doing. And that's okay. Our main thing was, let's start giving these kids an alternate path and a vision for where they could go. Because if you half the kids end up pursuing STEM degrees that are into competitive video gaming, there's a natural alignment there. We don't have to shove them very hard at all. It's more like just expose them to the problems. And they're interesting problems. And part of that comes out of my background is that my 1-minute resume. I have 2 engineering degrees, 11 patents. I'm a Sun Devil alum. I was a vice president for the Walt Disney Company. And my gameology is 15 published titles with 2 billion units. Yeah, it was a lot of units. It was 20 million units, that's right. And it was 2 billion in revenue. It was big. It was Cars. Cars was half of it. And then we did a bunch of motocross games and some projects for LucasArts. So I've been involved in video game development for a very long time. And so taking projects and breaking them down so kids can see them in an interesting light is not that hard. Our goal is just orient them towards something, like point them in a direction. We want to use their natural interest in gaming to go, this will lead somewhere if you want it to. And, I think there's opportunities, especially with Glendale, for us to bring in. We could definitely pull in people from GCU. There's other schools that are like, hey, where can we find people? And the community you're serving is super appealing to the university level because DEI, right? Everybody's trying to, like, how do we get a more diverse student base?
Yeah.
How do we bring more people in? They've got aid they can't give away right now. And so, like, creating that path, I think, could serve your community. It's just a different way of thinking about it than we're going to, put an egg in a peanut butter jar and drop it.
The big challenge for us, I think, is going to be our 3 centers are pretty old buildings. I'm not sure they're even have Wi-Fi at them today, so we'd have to do some infrastructure. And then we'd have to, if we wanted to go down this route, we'd have to figure out what the infrastructure we need, what kind of devices we need to get them connected, because again, we're starting from scratch.
Right.
We probably got some board games and some wiffle balls and some paddles in a closet.
You're so sad.
I know. And how do we get any kids to come to our center that have already left school and gone home? So if they don't have a gaming system at home and we could provide it, they might come to us. That's one of my thoughts. But
well, yeah. Okay, so there's a couple of things.
Because economics, they may not have it. Go ahead.
Well, one of the things we've learned about working with municipalities is y'all are lightning quick. Yeah. I'm joking, right?
Right.
It takes time, and we understand that. And so the question is, what can you get together now, but have a vision towards, as you get in front of council, as you start demonstrating progress, like what are the success metrics? Can you get a pilot started that is going to get you into the right position to get the funding to open this up? Yeah. Because, ultimately, long term, let's say end game, you end up with an arena at one of your facilities, it's still cheaper than installing a soccer field. It'll be cheaper to operate than watering a soccer field. So the economics of these things, people look at it right away and go, ugh. And I can tell you 2 of the largest programs in the world have 12 computers in them. They're like 2 offices back to back. They're not big. Kids you don't need a lot of space to efficiently, and one of those centers serves 1,800 students. So what you can do that's available to you is start with inexpensive consoles and some structured competition. You can go a long way with consoles. When you go into PCs, a really exciting alternative we've been working with on our side is setting up cloud computing. So NVIDIA cloud computing now works with Chromebooks. So you're leasing high-end computers for a few dollars a month, and then you're using $200, $150 laptops to play with them. And so there's ways to get them engaged. It's not the hardware. Like there's paths to our whole business, because a game truck is mobile arenas. We are the ninjas of video games. I joke, we're water. You give us a space, we'll fill it, and then we'll flow away, and it'll go back to where it was with no damage. It's easy to set up a space and begin to like carve out a corner and start a program. And once you've got momentum, start putting the numbers, the difference, the effects, and then start putting it in front of council and tying it into other renovation projects you're looking at. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing, there's no way around, ultimately you're going to want internet. It's not cheap for anybody but at home. And your IT department's going to get involved because you're not going to want that internet commingled with the rest of the city. But that's a 12 to 18 month project. But you can establish real benefit in a real community for a way smaller budget out of the gate.
That's exciting. Hey, Heidi, do you have any questions?
Oh, yeah. I guess my first question is, are there 2 different versions of this? Is there one where a group of kids can sit in a building and do this gaming, and then there is a version people can sign up online and play from their house?
100%.
Okay. And what we're talking about, though, is all in one facility at one spot, one moderator. Our staff is trained.
Right.
We're not playing with anyone from the outside. We're only playing internally.
Here's what we're seeing happen right now is, prior to March, we only did in person. So the pre-COVID world was our whole drive was to get kids out of their basements into a safe space where they could make a friend. Because what's happening is, to keep kids safe, we'll never introduce you to somebody online you don't know who could walk over to your house and meet you. It's too dangerous. So they systematically isolate the kids. The other bad effect that we're seeing is with this model is the disposable friend. So we're seeing this rapid deterioration in social skills Because if you say something I don't like, there's a billion kids to play with. You're out. Or I embarrass myself or feel like I've embarrassed myself in front of you, you're out. So they never deal with really connecting with somebody. So we want to get them back in the same physical space. And what we've seen is they will rapidly recover if they're around real people. And if they're around coaches that are trained to role model healthy interactive behaviors. We always send 2 coaches. There's always 2, ideally 3, and there's a psychological reason for that. So that was everything we did. Now it's post-COVID. So we have 100% virtual. We're talking about when we're going to be able to do in person, and we're planning for hybrid. So I think next month we have our first hybrid event. So hybrid means I don't have anything at home. My parents want me out of the house. I'm going to a center, but there's enough bandwidth for people that are at home to join us and play online. And so we have digital staff managing the whole package, so you can join anywhere. So if you want to go to a center, go to a center. But if you're at home, you can join us at home. And we're blending these 2 together. That's like cutting edge. But what we have absolutely done a mountain of is in person and virtual. It's the hybrid's the new, like everybody's trying to figure out, like,
Right.
we're going to eke our way back into this as people get comfortable. Our goal is to make it easy. We have this philosophy. Our inclusion is our highest value. We call it yes, you can play. If you're going to show up, we're going to do everything we can to get you in a game. So that's why we're trying to figure this out. Because if you're afraid to show up, then like, how do I get you in a game?
This is a silly question, and it's probably for later.
There are
down
no
the road.
silly questions.
Oh, there are.
All right.
Is
African
this
or European? I'm sorry.
Right. Is this strictly just video? There's no audio and no talking back and forth? Like who controls content? Because obviously you've dealt with other cities, but us being a city, who controls?
Let's get to risk management. Okay. So, let's deal with in person. So with in person, the mobile arena concept, there's no internet. Everything's happening in the same room. It's exactly the same as you would a ball field. People show up at a ball field. They are expected to behave. We lay out the ground rules. And we don't see the same aberrant behavior in person. You get 2 problems. Kids don't know how to lose, and they do not know how to win. And so that's where the adults step in and start role modeling healthy behaviors. And we do a lot about sportsmanship. So the programming and the content of them playing together, most of it is about teaching them how to behave and how to shape the community so that it's positive. And I can go into what all that's about. So let's go online. To online, there's 2 types of online. One of the types of online is where you have a community server. And in a community server, you have to have chat. The players have to be able to talk to each other to some degree. Even if it's just to share scores or to find out who am I competing with. That is always moderated. We never want unmoderated chat, especially with kids going on. Right. So in all of the online tournaments that we run and operate, and whether it was the Dallas Stars or Surprise or anybody else, there's a Discord and we run moderated chat. And when the moderators are not on, it's locked and nobody can talk to each other. So we do not support or have or advocate unmoderated chat. You can go do that yourself in the wild internet. But when we're dealing with a community, we want the community locked down to people that are approved to be in the community, and then we keep an eye on it. And we're still learning the procedures. Because poor Karen has these calls. They're like, what happened? Because the parents get involved and, they call you. And suddenly there's like 50 of us in a Zoom call because one kid posted a picture and somebody made fun of him. And we're like, was it child porn? What was it? We're like, okay, so archiving every communication. Like there's a whole thing about, we understand that there's accountability there. So that's why it's like they're moderated. We keep an eye on them and we lock them when we're not around. The other form of communication is how do you stream? if you're going to have a public facing stream, and where this is really valuable, because it's easy to overlook. And look, I've been in the game industry a long time, and I still keep forgetting about it, is the spectators. Believe it or not, video games have spectators now. It's a big deal. I'm going to blow your mind right now. More people watched the League of Legends Summer Championship last year than the Super Bowl and the Final Four combined. I mean,
I believe
huge.
it. I have a 7-year-old. That's all he does is watch other people play games.
Right. So you're going to want, when you have access to online, people are going to want to watch. And it's like when we do our in-person events, we always have, like, they come and stay the whole time. And so when you're doing an online event, Twitch is for your audience 13 and up. And if they're 12 and under, we don't use Twitch. We stream on a private video platform such as Zoom or Google Meet. And we keep it locked to the community. And so there's a protocol, and we have to shut off, chat. We don't want unmoderated chat. And in the streams, you never hear the players. You only hear the professional commentators. So the commentator is calling the game. They're talking about the game. We bring in other, it's entertainment. We're putting on a show. So we put on the show. We're narrating. Over 13, we will unlock chat, and we'll let them talk to each other. That's part of building the community. It's one of the favorite parts the universities love. We'll get engagement. What was it? Embry-Riddle had 100 kids online and 400 or 500 people watching. So we started sharing engagement statistics with the schools so they could see that their community is actually talking to each other. And for a city, it's still long-term. We want to continue to work on these ideas of how do we help grandma and grandpa stay in touch with their kids? How do we help the parents stay in touch with, like, I do it's now a webinar, but I do an in-person talk to parent groups. I've done it for Kyrene and Surprise and Brooklyn schools, where we talk about the 3 parental fears around video games and how to mitigate them. And then part of our business platform is to teach the people running the program how to help the parents get on board with what their kids are going through, and not make video games such a contentious thing with the families, because a lot of parents don't know how to deal with it. It's totally different today than when we grew up. The gaming it's so different than what anything we played or dealt with in the experience they're having. And it's part of a national and global trend that I can't remember her name. Karen, we met her, the lady that wrote the book called Untethered, talked about we're constructing digital personas. And so we have a personality online. Think of all your social media, think of your email, think of everything you do to communicate digitally. That constitutes a reputation. That constitutes a who you are. It's your avatar. You've carefully constructed it. These kids are starting earlier and spending more time in their digital persona than their real persona. We would like to bring it back to balance. We'd at least bring at least 50% instead of flipped. But what that means is they're super sensitive to getting yanked offline or having their game shut down. That's like getting pulled out of the middle of an inning in a baseball game. You're about to throw a pitch and your parent walks you off the field. Be prepared for a fight. And it's hard for parents to relate to that. They didn't grow up with it. So when you get to communities, controlling, we want them to talk to each other respectfully the right way. We want not just police it isn't the right word. We want to moderate it. We really want to avoid cancel culture. Like, we're going to give them every opportunity to fix it, but we will enforce community standards, and there will be an adult present. So that was a really long answer to a simple question, but the problem is actually complex because there's 3 areas that communication needs to occur. That we use 3 techniques to manage it.
Okay, I think that was a good answer. What to build a package? I mean, my guess is you guys kind of have stuff you can just pull off the shelf. I mean, every package is customized, but what is typically the lead time to get something up and running? A couple months, a couple weeks?
So it depends what you want. So if you want to launch a virtual program, we do that fast because nobody has to travel. We have all the equipment. It's literally the longest lead time is your marketing. So let me walk you through that. Let me walk you through what we've had the most success with and what Surprise recently had a lot of success with is we recommend, because you probably have a budget cap where above a certain amount, you got to send it out to bid, and we're going to spend a lot of time working on bids. Below a certain amount, you're like, we could just do this. So we will set up a pilot with you. They bought 4 tournaments. So we started with 4, we call them VEOs, Virtual Esport Open. And the idea is anybody's welcome. And so that's an opportunity for us to have, how often do we have in the tournaments, Karen? Once every 2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay. So that gets you the opportunity to start letting people know this kind of programming is available from the city of Glendale. So you're emailing, you're doing your social media, we picked a date, and we'll give you you can do the registration. We recommend you do it, especially we'll talk about kids and what you have to do to deal with getting 12 and unders online to compete, and we'll build it up. In your first one, you're going to get a handful of kids participating. The next one will be bigger. The third one will be bigger. And the fourth one will probably be the biggest because people are starting to realize this kind of experience is available, and they start inviting their friends. They start telling people about it. Probably the biggest advantage we have that draws the biggest crowd, we have a private Fortnite key. So we can run a private Fortnite server. So if you get a big enough group, they will fill the server, and it's only your community that's playing. And so what that'll do is get you guys toes in the water of running tournaments, finding out about virtual, learning more about the games, working with us as a company, and then we include in that, we'd like to include in that in the proposal, 1 to 2 seats of our Esport Director Certification Program. So it's an online self-paced education program that digs into, it'll give you the vocabulary. You will know, like, it'll walk you through all the stuff we're talking about. And there's a workbook that'll let you start creating the template. Like, here's what you need to think about, right? How are you going to fill this box? This is another thing for you to think about. How are you going to fill this box? So you should come out of the program with a template plan to implement esports in your organization. And we'll sit down with you and go through that plan and go, okay, here's how this compares to other cities. So you'll have run 4 events. You'll get a couple of people in your department trained up on all this crazy stuff. And what you're going to learn is you don't actually need to know video games. You just need to know how to hire people that do. And then how to partner with them, and then how to guide them to begin to roll your programming out. And then over that period, we can start looking at, like, out of that plan is like, what is your hierarchy of needs? Because because of Game Truck, we outfit, video game equipment all the time. That's what we do. We fill trailers with equipment. You'll see our mobile arenas. We can get you all that information, but that's a bigger thing to dig into. Is the simplest way to start is running the tournaments and getting through that initial training, and that should leave you with a community that knows you're in this, and you've got a plan you can begin to execute. And then after that, what does it look like? It looks like, okay, we have a plan for our initial equipment purchases to roll out in-person programming. The next rounds of training, you're going to need to hire your own tournament organizers, and your own commentators. And then there'll be some peripheral, $10 an hour volunteer people that will go through a coaching program so they know how to work with kids in video games. And we can help you begin to consult and work on a 3-year plan to end up with a fully self-contained esport arena program.
Sorry, I'm just writing a few things down.
So, but as we get to the later ones, as we start getting to that, Yes, it involves consulting. It involves like all the things you normally do when you're rolling something out. But we try to make sure at any point when you're like, we're done, you have gotten real value out of what you've done. Is like what we're trying to say is we're not going to abandon you going, good luck.
Right.
You know, I hope that works out for you. It's more every production step includes some value add that you're like, you've learned enough that you know what the next direction is. Because you might decide to go in a different direction. You might go, oh, we can get this software and do this ourselves. Like, yeah, you can. It's just our goal is to save you time and bring best practices, because we're working with a lot of different organizations in the community space. That's our specialty. Is we are not trying to win a world championship. In fact, my dirty little secret, I don't really care about winners that much. They're free. You can't not get a winner. Winners are so easy to get. It's like, what's happening for everybody else? What experience are the most people having? And video games give you have different things to play with than you do in traditional sports. Like, I can run every match at the same time. There's no field limitation in a virtual tournament. We can run them all. So we can run a different kind of tournament than you would even contemplate doing in real life. And that gives you different options. So those are the things that we're into, is trying to help you. And we do this because, to be honest, our mission is to, we want to affect 1 million, 10 million, 100 million kids. And we need help. And it's like, if we can help you build a self-sustaining program that goes on for your community, like, it's leverage. We get more leverage. Like, I want to build municipal basketball courts of esports. There's one professional basketball court in Arizona, right? There's maybe 3 Division I courts in the state of Arizona. How many municipal courts are there? Like, how many basketball courts are used every night in the state? Most of them. They are in my neighborhood. Like, that's what we want. Kids playing together and making friends.
So, Scott, you mentioned a couple of municipalities you're working with here locally. Maricopa and Surprise were 2 of them. Did I catch that right?
Yep. And
that's their recreation programs through their parks departments?
Yep. 100%.
Okay, we're going to want to touch base with them.
You did Peoria's as well, correct?
No, Peoria went with a company out of Chicago called GG Leagues. And so did Chandler. So that's a software platform that will let you post tournaments.
Got you. Okay.
So Mission Control is another company that does something similar. I think their largest account is in Dallas. They're based out of Florida. And so a lot of the companies, like how we're different from the other companies, is that they'll give you software and support, and then you launch the tournaments. And they're all online. They're very cost effective. Their licenses are not expensive. It's all fully automated, and you can have an esports program up and running. Our emphasis is human connection. So we're big believers in people interacting with people. And one of the things we noticed in our assessment, and it may have changed, some of these pieces of software, you can actually walk up the tree to see how many people are enrolled, and the enrollment numbers are very, very low. And we had a similar experience with Rockville, Maryland, is if you don't create the show, if you don't create the entertainment product, if you don't give people an opportunity to spectate and see what it's all about, you end up with very low enrollment. If you just go to straight digital competition, the kids don't know why that's different than what they already have. And so participation is low. If you build a belief that there's a community, that there's something interesting happening with people they know, that they could watch, then jump in and participate, that's where we've seen the numbers grow. Those are the ones we've seen be successful. But there's no guarantees. It's the problem with online. It's a low commitment environment.
Jim and Heidi, I'll share a little bit of insight with what we did with the City of Surprise, because we just ran a Fortnite tournament with them, virtual Esports Open with them last Saturday, because they bought from us 4 events. and the first event was Rocket League. The second event was Fortnite. They had 137 players register for that Fortnite tournament. Big, huge number, because we were going to cap it at 128 players. That's usually a full bracket for us. But because of the strong response and turnout, we had to kind of split them up into two divisions: a lower, younger age division, 12 and under, and then an older 13 and up division. Some of the survey responses that they got from the parents after Saturday's event, they said 85% of the parents and the community who participated enjoyed it. The other 15%, not so much. There were probably some of the complaints that we got along the way. And this stat really surprised me a little bit. They said over 60% enjoyed watching the tournament on Zoom and or Twitch, because that visual, sort of the visual gameplay aspect, and then also hearing the play-by-play commentary is a little bit different from what their kids, they're seeing their kids do. So they were very, very pleased. I'm happy to connect you with the people that we worked with at the City of Surprise. They are looking to book more events with us because they heard in the open-ended comments section that they wanted more. They wanted more of these virtual tournaments.
To put that in perspective, a typical collegiate tournament is 30 to 60 kids. So 130 odd competitors is huge. The largest tournament we'd seen, the Dallas Stars, we partnered with them when they did they did a tournament series, which was really cool. They gave us a shout out that tournament was kind of what launched their fan base to their run to the Stanley Cup. Great organization to work with. That capped out at 112. So for the City of Surprise to pull 137 was like, dang, they really, there's, if you get it right, there's absolutely interest there.
And they charge $10 a player, by the way. So they got some city rent. $10 a player.
What age groups were they targeted at? I'm sorry, excuse me. What age group were they targeted at?
7 and up.
So let's talk about kids and online. So the Child Online Protection Act, Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPA, specifically carves out schools. So this is why all the kids just went online and the schools didn't worry about it. Municipalities and private businesses are not carved out. So you're going to want to get your risk management office involved. And best practice we've seen so far, we've talked to our attorneys. I'm not an attorney, nor do I play one on TV. I'm just saying, talk to them. You need verifiable consent of the parent for their child to participate in the program. So whatever that means for you, we're your production company. So ultimately, this risk does reside with the person that markets to the parent. And there are some platforms that don't care. So Twitch, if there's anybody under 12 and under on the program, we will not put it on Twitch because they will ban an account. They don't care. So that's where we'll stream to Zoom or Google Meet or, YouTube. You can actually do some things. Facebook has online gaming. We just have to select what most parents are comfortable with Zoom. Everybody's using it right now. The schools all use it. But you can't, there's certain places you can't go for kids that are 12 and under. So, but it's something that early on you want risk management involved because it's a big deal. It's a federal regulation and nobody wants to run afoul of that.
That's true. All right. You guys given us a lot to think about, a lot to learn, investigate. Those packages that you put together for Surprise, what's the order of magnitude of that? Is that
It's like
$5,000 item or $50,000 item?
$1,000 per event. If you book 4 events with us, it's $1,000 per event.
Plus and we throw in the training with a 20% discount on the training.
Okay, yeah, that's very doable. Okay, thank you for that. Okay.
We provide all of our own equipment though, correct? That's just the programming side?
Yeah, that's the virtual side. So
Okay.
that's getting started with purely virtual programming.
Okay.
If you want to work together we would need to understand your purchasing requirements so that we could fit within. We did consulting and custom training with the City of Maricopa because they were figuring it out, and so were we. Nobody had ever done what they did before. If you're looking for a proposal and a workable plan to get your centers up and running with in-person esports, I'm available to do that work, and we could give you a proposal for that, at least for a pilot, and meet your purchase requirements so that we're not breaking any rules, to make sure that we're compliant, and we can get you enough of a plan that even if you didn't go with us, you'll be able to move forward with something.
Okay.
It's sorry, I have a big yellow lab, and if she doesn't get let out, she gets cranky. Come on, puppy. So the 5 is for production, and you've launched your program, and now your community knows what's going on. Sitting down and working with you on your spaces and what kind of programming you need and everything else. I'm available to do that, and we'd set up another Zoom call with a consultation on what are you actually trying to achieve, and then we could send you an appropriate quote for what it would take for us to pull that together.
Okay.
Because part of it is believe it or not, I have held back. I have a staggering amount of well-researched information on effects of video games in kids, the mental health. There will be opportunities to loop in your other physical fitness programs in with your esports programs. Like, there's a lot of things you can do in this space. And our goal is to make it easy for people that don't understand video games, because your gamers are going to be like, yes, hey, we're thinking of esports. They're like, they're in. It's the people typically counsel, and a lot of managers tend to be older, and they still think a Game Boy is a thing. And they're like, I don't understand. And like, we'll give them the tools to understand why this program is going to make a difference and be beneficial. And then we want the program to be beneficial and make a difference. We don't want to just get a yes. You want to actually do the work.
Okay.
All right, a lot to digest.
I hope that was helpful for you guys. I hope that was useful.
Oh, it's very intriguing and very it's like a big black hole to me. So I'm glad that you were able to explain it. We were having a conversation the other day with the spring training people here in town, big business in April, and a couple of the professional baseball people had no idea that esports was already going on at the professional level, organized and set up to have teams mirroring the actual teams that are out there playing on real grass. And they were like, what's esports? I'm like, that's interesting. I was like 1 nanosecond ahead of them, but I feel like I'm 100 years behind you, so that's good.
Oh, I know the feeling. A couple of years ago, I'm like, what? What are you doing? And, you'll get there. It's just like, okay, how do we pull this information together? And your needs are very different than the professional esport needs are. They're just barreling off in their own direction.
So I think we want to try to figure out some way to get our toe in the water, and maybe that model that Surprise is doing is something we'll call and talk to them. And Karen, if you could send us the contacts, that'd be great. And then just figure out, as Heidi brings on this employee and we start looking at these centers, we're going to do some traditional drop-in recreation things and have places for kids. And I'm sure we're going to have onesie twosies. We'll be thrilled if we get 30 kids after school. One of our centers is literally adjacent to school with about 2,000 kids. So there's a good chance we'll capture some of them. Another one is half a mile away. And so that walking distance is a big deal in the heat in Arizona and the way kids operate today. The other one is in the downtown barrio, and I think the school is only a couple hundred yards down the street, but that could be as good as a mile in that community. So we have different challenges, but if we can what I'm thinking, at least, Heidi, if we could start small and figure out some way to engage and bring in a different group of kids, it could be the beginning of something. And, a couple $1,000s to get started may be possible, but there's a lot of unanswered questions. So we'll have to just jump into that. I've got a 3:00 appointment, so I need to go get ready, but I do really appreciate you taking the time and setting this up.
Awesome. Yeah, no. And we'd love to continue the conversation.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
For sure. I will reach out to you guys via email with the connection to City of Surprise. Thanks for
That
your
would be
time
great.
today.
Thank you very much.
awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for that.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure we'll be in touch.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hey, I'm Richard, and this is the X Alp Seek 7 from Pearl Izumi. Now, these cycling sneakers have a low-cut athletic design there, so you'll get some added mobility. You have breathable mesh and synthetic throughout the upper here with a protective toe rand in the front. It's really sturdy, and a pull loop in the back for an easier on and off. Got a good amount of padding there around that collar with a thin comfort tongue in front. Good cushioning down there in that insole that is made out of very soft foam. Give you some underfoot comfort. You also have this carbon lug outsole down here to keep you steady. The cleats are not included with these guys. So go ahead and get cycling. They are from Pearl Izumi.
Hello. Oh my God. Companies that I have founded and how Esports Opens we host. And so access, all votes are in. So if you don't know, just hit undecided. Okay, so I'm going to share that with you. What we're seeing is this is a healthy response. Is about 2/3 of you feel that you agree with that statement, and a third strongly agree. That's excellent. That's really a good response for. So not just the phenomenal. And you will not be graded. Be able to use it productively. Was really useful. Leading across as much of the economy as can possibly participate. That is truly historic. What does it mean? If you can master, capitalize on that. Well, one of the things I want to do is I'm going to share a poll with you. Let's just gather some data. So this is an opportunity for you to dig into your own experience. What is your current team environment like? So I'm going to ask 5 quick questions. We'll share the results. And what I want to just think about your own personal experience, either the team you're leading or the team you're on. These should be anonymous. And let's go ahead and launch that first question. So this should pop up in the middle of your screen. It give you a chance to just make a really quick, what's your work environment, like how you perceive it. There's no real wrong answers here. stream.